Good morning, Pinecrest Baptist Sunday School, Adult to Sunday School class. And today is an interesting topic. It comes from Romans chapter 13, and it is about being a good citizen. And so today, as we read through this, let's think, why is it important for believers to be good citizens? Before we get into the text, let me kind of put this in a historical context. What's going on when Paul wrote these verses in Romans chapter 13? They were under an emperor, and his name was Nero, and he was a very evil man. And Christians were being viewed with suspicion because Christians refused to bring a sacrifice to the Roman gods. That would be blasphemy, and they just refused to do it. And so they were viewed as disloyal and unpatriotic. So at the time this was written, Christians were under not just suspicion, but a certain degree of persecution. Let's go ahead and start reading here in Romans chapter 13, verses 1 through 4. It says, "Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil." So let's break it down. What's Paul saying here? He's saying that God is a God of order, and he has allowed these governments to be over us in order to have order. Okay, so these are ordained of God. The governments that are over us are ordained by God. They're allowed by God to bring a certain amount of consistency, order, and to not have lawlessness in the land. In verse 2, where it says, if you resist the power, resist the ordinance of God, and then it says that they that resist it shall receive to themselves damnation. This is not spiritual damnation. This means condemnation. It reminds me of the old song, I fought the law and the law won. So if you break laws, you will receive the penalty for breaking those laws. Okay? It also goes on to say that if you do good, you have nothing to fear. But if you do evil, you do need to fear those in power over you. Now, is that to say that governments always do the right thing? And the answer to that is no. For example, those Christians that were asked to sacrifice to pagan gods, they refused to do it. You know, when in the book of Acts, Paul and Silas are thrown into prison, for healing a woman. And they had to make a decision. Are we going to obey God or man? Sometimes you have to make a choice. But in our day-to-day lives, we are called to be good citizens. There's no reason not to be. And being a good citizen is being a good witness as well. Now, one of the questions is to consider in the book is to consider what kind of things our local government and our government has done for us. And I think it's real easy to say that if not for a local, state, and federal government, our lives would be a lot worse. Wouldn't have public works, wouldn't have sewage, water. Our taxes go for a lot of things that are good. It supports a military that protects us. We pay taxes that support public schools, which teach children who otherwise wouldn't be taught. So the government actually benefits the community we live in, even though we may not always agree with it. And that's the point Paul's making. Be a good citizen. Okay, let's move along to the next topic Paul has set up for us, which is equally as popular, and that is the topic of taxes, or paying your taxes. Romans chapter 13, starting in verse 5. "Wherefore Ye must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. Verse 6, For this cause pay ye tribute also, for they are God's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing. Render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. So, we are to pay tribute, to pay taxes to the government. It reminds me of a time when they were trying to catch Jesus in a trap, and they asked him the question, should we pay taxes to Rome? If he had answered just yes, you should pay taxes, it would make him sound like a supporter of the oppressive Roman government. If he said no, it would make him sound like a rebellious zealot. And so instead, Jesus said that you should render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and unto God's what is God's. In other words, pay your taxes that are due. Pay your bills. Be a good steward. Be financially responsible with your money, and that includes paying your taxes. Paying taxes isn't a bad thing, although we sometimes resent feeling like we're having our pockets picked by the government. You go out and you work long and hard, and a third of your paycheck, may be gone to taxes. That's okay. Our taxes support a lot of good public works, and they don't just protect us here in the United States. Our taxes do a lot of good abroad as well. So, pay your taxes and don't resent the government as you pay them. The other thing he talks about is fear to whom fear, respect to whom respect is due, honor to whom honor is due. And this has to do with respecting the office, regardless of the fact that the person who inhabits that office may differ with us ideologically. That is to say, I may be of one party, that person may be of another party, but I'm still to respect that office. I'm to pray for the person that holds that position, whether I agree with them or not. And I think that's a great idea. Instead of complaining about those in power, get down on our knees and to pray for them, especially the ones we don't agree with. Okay, let's finish this out with Romans chapter 13, verses 8 through 10. Owe no man anything but love one another, for he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. For this, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not covet. And if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Love worketh no ill to his neighbor, therefore love is the fulfilling of the law. God's law. If we follow that law, if we love the Lord our God with all our heart, mind, and soul and strength, and we love our neighbor as ourselves, by fulfilling his law, we'll be able to fulfill the law, the laws that govern us. And the most important law is to love God and to love people. As a matter of fact, a lot of the ills in our society, all of the ills in our society could be avoided if only everybody loved God and loved their neighbor. So I'm going to leave you with that. Things are in a strange way. You look around and you see a lot of protest. And whether you agree with protesters or not, what they're protesting, the fact of the matter is, I need to extend the love of Christ even to those I may terribly disagree with. So I'm going to leave you with that thought. Let's just be Christ. Let's fulfill the law by fulfilling the law. And we can do that as the Holy Spirit leads and guides us in our day-to-day life. Stay prayed up, stay read up, and Pinecrest Baptist Church, Adult 2 Sunday School class, thanks for joining me this morning. You have a good day.